was down. My goodness.
Tell me you didn't just smile. That's what fans swore they saw when Sophie Cunningham, clutching her right knee, was helped off the floor on August 17 in Connecticut.
So effective down low, and she can get a lot of people in foul trouble with how physical she is.
Son, turn it over. This is the play that just occurred.
That's like she tries to slide over right there, and Hartley just kind of falls.
Bria Hartley had just collided with her on a hard drive, and the camera caught a split-second expression that looked like a grin. A season that was already paper-thin for Indiana suddenly felt like it was tearing in half. Was it an accident? Was it reckless? Or was the smile, this one frozen frame, proof of something uglier?
Makes collision with that lower leg. You see her immediately grab it. And she went down hard.
That single image lit the fuse, and everything since has been smoke, fire, and a whole lot of debate about where the line is between hard basketball and harm. The play itself looked ordinary until it wasn't. Hartley cut into the lane, traffic swirled, shoes squealed, bodies jostled, and momentum carried straight into Sophie's lower leg.
A scary moment as we went to commercial. Sophie Cunningham hit the floor hard.
She reached for her knee before she even hit the hardwood. That reaction, the instant grab, the grimace, the way she tried to sit up and then sank back down, told you more than any slow-mo could. Trainers rushed in. The arena's volume evaporated. Teammates looked away. You know that hush that hits when everybody realizes the human part just hijacked the game? It was that. No review, no stoppage that would change anything back. Just the slow, heavy walk to the tunnel and the awful thought that this might be it for her year. If you follow Sophie, you know she's been loud about the officiating this season. Not petty, direct. She said what a lot of players only hint at: inconsistent whistles, late reactions, players absorbing too many hits because the game's physicality keeps inching forward without guardrails. So when she went down and the refs just let it roll, Indiana fans didn't simply see an injury. They saw a pattern. The floodgates opened. Comment sections turned into town halls. Clips got posted, clipped again, and reposted with arrows, circles, pausing right on Hartley's face as Sophie limped off. That's where the outrage sharpened. People don't rally around nuance, they rally around an image. And this time, the image looked like a smirk. Here's the part nobody can agree on. Intent. Did Hartley mean to hurt her? Did she launch? Did she lose her footing and collide at the worst possible angle? Go frame by frame and you can argue any side you want. But public opinion doesn't live in slow-mo. It lives in story. And the story many fans told themselves was this: Sophie was targeted. The narrative hardened because of what came next. The smile, or whatever it was, got memed, captioned, and turned into a villain origin shot. It wasn't just a foul anymore. It was a character test. Overnight, Hartley wasn't merely the player in the collision. She was the one who laughed. Fair or not, context matters, and Hartley's context isn't clean in the court of public opinion. People remembered other scuffles. A handful of chippy possessions this season turned into viral moments. Jerseys tugged, scrums that got too tangled, a hair yank on a rebound that fans still bring up like it happened yesterday. No one of those moments makes you a dirty player, but the montage effect is real. String them together and the picture gets darker. So when Sophie went down and that camera found Hartley's face, the past rushed in and stamped meaning on the moment. Suddenly, it wasn't a collision. It was another Hartley thing. Indiana's sideline tried to stay in the game, but you could see the shock. Sophie was ruled out. Caitlin Clark wasn't playing. The bench was already held together by willpower and tape. The Fever fell behind by 21. The sun smelled blood. And yet, under the surface, something stubborn was waking up. Kelsey Mitchell had 4 points at the half. 4. Then she flipped the switch that only scorers know. She started hitting from everywhere. Pull-ups in rhythm, deep threes that don't touch rim, hard takes with perfect body control. 12 turned to 20, 20 turned to 30, and by the time overtime hit, she'd poured in 38, with 34 after the break, and opened OT by scoring the first 10 herself. That's not just hot, that's volcanic. Aliyah Boston did the blue-collar work that never gets enough love. Positioning, hands strong, rebounds that rip energy out of the opponent. She steadied the glass and kept possessions alive, the kind of quiet control that makes scores look inevitable. Odyssey Sims, pressed into more responsibility than anyone planned, turned chaos into pace, organizing the action with a poise that said, "I've got this." And then the dagger. Lexi Hull in the corner. No flinch, pure mechanics. Bottom of the net. The bench detonated. The building swallowed hard. The team down 21 was now dancing on the line between miracle and memory. Back in the locker room, the noise changed. It wasn't crowd noise anymore. It was that buzzing mix of laughter and disbelief and relief that fills a room when a group climbs out of a hole it had no business escaping. The quotes afterward could have come from any great locker room in any sport, but they carried the flavor of this team. We don't bow, we don't beg, we battle. Even from a distance, Caitlin Clark sent a note that hit exactly right. Battled, battled, battled. So proud. That's how connected groups talk. And Sophie, from her own cloud of uncertainty, summed up the only name that deserved to trend that night, Kelsey freaking Mitchell. But a comeback doesn't erase a collision. The image is still there. The anger is still there. The question, accident or line crossed, still hangs in the air. Indiana's joy and grit created the most improbable part of the story. The other part isn't going away. Fans who wanted action demanded it. Suspend Hartley. Fine her. Make a statement. Protect the players. If that sounds intense, it's because the stakes feel bigger than one game. The women's game has exploded in attention. With attention comes urgency about safety. If stars aren't protected, if whistle standards wobble from quarter to quarter, the product suffers. The bodies suffer first. And somewhere in the middle of it, there's Sophie, who has built a career on effort you can measure with bruises. She's not a headline chaser, she's a heartbeat in sneakers. And she's not shy about saying when the pulse is off. She's also human, and humans snap a second before they breathe. In the days after, her family said what families say when they see someone they love in pain. This is out of control. The officiating is broken. This league better step up. It's raw. It's real. It's what the internet eats for breakfast and then asks for seconds. When the heat is that high, what should Bria Hartley do? You don't get to control the initial frame, you do get to control the next one. Maybe it starts with something simple, direct and human. No lawyers, no PR varnish, just the truth of a competitor who never wanted this outcome. If I were scripting the words that could calm the water instead of churning it, it would sound like this. I'm sorry. I reached out to Sophie the moment I could. I hate that the play ended the way it did. I never ever step on a floor trying to injure anyone. My balance went. My angle was bad. The result was worse. I take responsibility for the collision, and I'm committed to playing safer. To Sophie, her family, and Fever fans, please hear me. I respect her. I respect the game. I'm hurting that she's hurting. That's not an admission of malice. It's an acknowledgement that impact matters more than intent when someone's season ends. Because that's the truth here. Intent and impact don't weigh the same. If you crash your bike into a stranger on the sidewalk, it doesn't matter that you weren't trying to. They're still on the ground. How you respond next is the measure. The cleanest path for Hartley is accountability without self-immolation. You say you're sorry. You explain without excusing. You commit to change. You accept whatever the league decides and you mean it. And if the smile frame was a grimace, a weird reflex, a face the camera stole out of context, you say that too, but carefully. Not defensive, not snarky, not you're all crazy. Just the simplest version. I get how that frame looked. I wasn't laughing, I was bracing. I understand why it made people angry, and I'm sorry it added pain to a painful moment. Now let's talk about that frame, because there's something bigger tucked inside it about how we consume sports. One image can become the whole truth. It might be right, it might be wrong. It's almost always incomplete. Camera hunting is a contemporary sport. We angle, we crop, we meme, and somewhere along the line, human beings become avatars for whatever we need them to be to keep the outrage engine humming. I'm not asking anyone to ignore the clip. I'm asking for one beat of discipline before the verdict. Does that beat fix a torn ligament? No. Does it ease the sting? Sometimes. More often, it lets us see a person instead of a headline. None of that removes the responsibility from the league. The growth is the best story in sports, but growth without guardrails invites nights like this. Players have been telling us for months that the physicality has crept from fierce to reckless too often. The answer isn't to make the game soft, it's to make the standards clearer and the accountability swifter. Automatic reviews on knee-to-leg collisions, education on verticality in tight spaces, consistent upgrades post-game when something dangerous slipped through. Fine the mouth, sure, but fix the whistle first. If you want respect at scale and the W deserves it, invest in the refereeing with the same urgency you invest in content, marketing, and scheduling. What about Indiana? The left-turn answer is they're tougher today than they were before August 17. Tougher isn't just a word in a slogan, it's what happens when a room agrees that the worst day won't define the next one. Mitchell didn't just put up numbers. She took the whole conversation about doom and flipped it into a reminder that every possession is a vote. Boston put a hand on the steering wheel and never let the car shake. Sims, Hull. The bench that won't stop talking. The staff that refuses pity. Those are the ingredients you need to survive empty spaces on the roster and long nights on the road. The Fever are not naive. They know a season-ending knee injury is more than a storyline. But they also know the only useful response to chaos is cohesion. Hartley's path forward? It's not written, but it's not complicated. If there's a suspension, take it on the chin. If there's a fine, pay it and keep it moving. Keep the social feeds quiet for a beat. Not as a duck and cover, but as proof that the priority is the locker room, the film room, the habits that keep you inside the lines. And when you speak, aim for plain language, no passive voice, no mistakes were made nonsense. The players know the difference between a PR paragraph and a heart talking. Fans do too. The fastest route back from villain status isn't a brand rehabilitation plan. It's a month of clean play that takes the oxygen out of the old clips. Sophie's voice will keep mattering more than anyone's. If she comes out and says again that she doesn't believe there was intent, many people will breathe. Not all, but many. That's her right. She lived the contact. She lives the rehab. Her word carries weight. It also doesn't obligate the rest of us to pretend the image didn't hurt to look at. Two truths can stand next to each other. It can be an accident and still be unacceptable. That tension is exactly where grown-up sports conversation should live. I want to acknowledge something about the anger because it's become fashionable to scold fans for feeling too much. Anger isn't the enemy. Indifference is. People are furious because they care. They care about Sophie's career, about the Fever's chances, about a league they've ridden for years suddenly sitting under the biggest spotlight it's ever had. The reason Protect the Players rings so loud right now is because everyone knows this moment is fragile and precious. You can feel the WNBA cresting. Nobody wants the story to be that the league couldn't keep up with its own momentum when it came to safety. If you're Bria, you probably want to disappear. If you're Sophie, you probably want the noise to drop a few decibels so you can focus on the work. If you're the league, you want clarity. Here's what we saw, here's what we decided, here's what we'll do next time. And if you're a fan, you just want a game you love to prove it loves its players back. That's not too much to ask. It's the baseline. So where does that leave us tonight? With a picture that won't stop circulating, a comeback that deserves two, and a set of choices that will say more about everyone involved than that frame ever could. If Hartley steps up with a real apology, no hedging, no defensiveness, it won't rewrite the past, but it might soften the edges. If the W steps up with meaningful enforcement and clearer standards, the next collision like this might end in a review instead of a riot. If we step up as viewers and leave room for the messy middle, we might actually learn something instead of just scoring points in the comments. Sophie Cunningham's season ended on a night her team refused to. That's a cruel symmetry, and it's also a map. Seasons end, stories keep going. The Fever will play on with a hole in their rotation and a chip on their shoulder the size of that 21-point deficit. Kelsey Mitchell will keep shooting like the basket owes her money. Aaliyah Boston will keep being the grown-up in the paint. Odyssey Sims will keep binding the seams. Lexi Hull will wait in the corner with the quiet confidence that turned one overtime into a memory. And the rest of us will keep talking about a split-second expression and whether it revealed something dark or just reflected a terrible human moment. Before we close, here's the apology again, the way it should be said if it's said at all. Because clarity matters. Sophie, I'm sorry. I respect you as a competitor and a person. I never intended that contact, and I hate that it cost you your season. I'll learn from it, and I'll own whatever consequences come. To the Fever, their fans, and the league, my responsibility is to play hard and play clean. I owe you that, and I intend to prove it. If those words come and the actions match them, we might look back on August 17 as the night a bad moment turned into a better standard. Until then, you've seen the clip. You've heard the outrage, you've watched the comeback. Now I want to hear you. Was this suspension worthy? Should the league redefine what triggers automatic review? How do you balance intent and impact when a season is at stake? Drop your take because this community is smart and your voice actually shapes what we cover next. Tap like if you believe players deserve better protection. Subscribe if you want more than surface level noise. We do deep dives, we bring receipts, and we try to leave you with something to think about long after the buzzer. Turn the bell on so you never miss the next chapter, because something tells me this story isn't done. Not by a long shot. There's one more thing the frame can't tell you: heartbeat. In every collision, there are 3 heartbeats: yours, theirs, and the crowd's. Yours is adrenaline and instinct. Theirs is shock and pain. The crowd's is judgment. When those 3 collide, the slowest one always loses, and that's usually the truth. We love replay because it gives us the illusion that time can be controlled, that if we squint hard enough, the answer will announce itself. But the game never pauses for long in real life. People still have to pick up a ball, run a set, lace up again. In that sense, the cleanest test of character is always the next possession. How you play after the worst moment says more than any statement you post at midnight. And yes, statements matter. Words matter. But there's a reason the best apologies in sports are short and human. They strip out the corporate stuffing and aim straight for the bruise. You feel it when someone means it. A real apology from Hartley wouldn't be a performative tour. It wouldn't be a Notes app graphic made by a publicist. It would be a direct message to Sophie that turned into an honest line to everyone else. It would confirm she understands that impact beats intent and that pain radiates past one player into a locker room, a fan base, a league. If she added anything beyond that, it would be a promise you can measure: cleaner closeouts, smarter angles, better body control in traffic. Not vows, habits. If you're wondering, why are we still talking about a single play? It's because the play is a mirror. Inside it, you can see every hot button angle in the W right now: the speed of the growth, the unevenness of the whistle, the endless fight for respect, the internet's ability to decide the villain before the league decides the foul. People aren't arguing about one collision, they're arguing about what kind of league they want. A league with a backbone. A league that moves as fast on safety as it does on marketing. A league that can protect physicality without encouraging recklessness. That's a tight needle to thread. It's also the job. There's a practical path here that doesn't need 1,000 meetings. 1. Set a bright line trigger for automatic review. Any lower leg contact that bends a knee or ankle sideways initiates a booth look. No ego involved. 2. Define reckless body through as its own category, separate from flagrant and common, so refs can escalate without pretending they saw malice. 3. Publish upgrade notes within 24 hours after games with video clips and 2-sentence explanations. Transparency isn't a favor, it's a pressure valve. When fans understand the standard, even if they hate it, they yell less and trust more. And 4. Give players and coaches one fast, limited-use request for review on potential dangerous contact plays, the way other leagues let you challenge a call on the field. If we can stop the game to check a toe on a three-point line, we can stop it to check a knee. On the human side, the standard is even simpler. Respect. Old-school respect, the kind you learned in youth leagues before anyone had a brand. You can play mean and still be clean. You can set a tone without crossing a line. You can play the edge without sawing it off. The greats in every sport figured out that balance, not because their leagues were perfect, but because they decided their names mattered more than one possession. When we talk about protecting the stars, it shouldn't sound like coddling. It should sound like protecting the craft. The game is better when its best players finish the season on the court, not in a boot. Sophie's rehab is going to test the parts of an athlete that don't go on highlight reels. There will be mornings where everything feels tight and heavy, where the knee argues with the mind and the mind needs a better lawyer. There will be a dozen tiny wins only she and a trainer notice: a degree more flexion, a step without guarding, a shooting session where the landing feels normal for the first time. And there will be nights where the arena gets loud again, and she'll have to decide whether the muscle memory is stronger than the memory of the fall. Most pros will tell you the comeback never starts with an announcement. It starts with a breath, then another, then 100 reps you don't post. It's unglamorous. It's also where a career proves itself. Hartley's arc from here is quieter but just as visible. The next 4 weeks of her game film will say more than any panel show. Watch the closeouts, watch the hips when she slides, watch the gather steps in traffic, whether she turns glancing contact into shoulder-through contact or chooses a different route. Players evolve in one of two ways after nights like this. They double down on the chaos, or they get ruthlessly technical. If she chooses the latter, you'll see fewer bang-bang angles and more controlled deceleration into contests. You'll see hands high, body square, and a conscious decision to avoid the kind of sideswipe contact that makes knees scream. That's not playing scared. That's playing grown. And let's not pretend the internet will hand out forgiveness like candy. Some folks decided who Hartley is the second they saw that freeze frame, and nothing short of a time machine will change their mind. That's life in 2025. But there's still a big middle of fans who will be persuaded by consistent, clean basketball and a single clear sentence: "I'm sorry for the collision and the pain it caused." You don't need to fight every comment. You need to earn enough trust that the next frame people see of you is you helping someone up, not walking away. Zoom out far enough and this whole episode reads like a parable about momentum. The Sun had it until they didn't. The Fever lost it and then seized it back with both hands. The narrative had Hartley cast as a villain until Sophie's own voice complicated the script. Momentum is fickle, but it's also coachable. Teams build routines to create it. Leagues build rules to protect it. Players build habits to survive it. If the W commits to clearer standards in dangerous contact situations, this week's firestorm turns into next year's best practice. And if Indiana uses the memory of that comeback as a mental proof of concept, it won't just be an overtime win in August. It'll be a spine they carry into every fourth quarter that looks lost. There's room, too, for an actual gesture that isn't hollow. Hartley could reach out privately, sure, that's base, but imagine something that lives beyond a headline. A joint youth clinic with Sophie in the off-season, focused on safe footwork in tight spaces, teaching kids how to slide, how to decelerate, how to avoid knee-to-knee, how to read angles when the paint gets crowded. No cameras, or at least cameras last. Actions like that don't cancel pain. They convert it into something useful. And if you think that sounds corny, okay, tell that to the kid who learns a safer step and never has to sit out a season. For the league, this should be treated like a systems check, not panic. Precision. Tighten the mechanics around reviews. Put together a short in-season training tape for refs with 5 clips labeled Review, Escalate, Downgrade, Play On, Post-Game Upgrade. Give teams the same tape so everyone's working from one dictionary. Consistency doesn't mean perfection, it means predictability. The game can be physical and still be predictable in its standards. The best version of the W is rugged, fast, loud, and clean. For Indiana's fans, your part matters more than you think. Home crowds can shape how teams metabolize a moment. Booing Hartley every touch for 10 straight games won't speed Sophie's recovery. It will just trap you in August. The sharper play, the one that honors Sophie, is to make the building loud for discipline. Cheer the wall-ups, the verticality, the extra pass, the stop on a dime that keeps a body off the floor. That's how you teach young fans what winning looks like when it's not just about heat checks and dunks. It's an old-school lesson in a new-school league. And to the folks who will say, this is sports, it's supposed to be rough, no one's arguing for bubble wrap. The exact reason this moment matters is because the game is hard. That's why it deserves better margins. Pro athletes sign up for collisions. They don't sign up for preventable injuries. The edge is where greatness lives, but if you chop the edge into splinters, nobody can stand on it. There's a future version of this story I like picturing. It's late in the season. Indiana's in another tough spot, and you can feel the crowd leaning forward the way it did on comeback night. Somewhere else, Hartley's in a close game and slides her feet instead of tilting a shoulder, the kind of micro-choice nobody cheers but coaches love. Sophie's on a sideline in street clothes, a month from returning, shouting coverages like she's in the drill. The league has posted 3 straight weeks of clean, quick, transparent review notes, and the temperature online is 10 degrees cooler. That's not a fantasy. It's the sum of 100 small choices made the right way. So yes, we can keep replaying the frame, or we can decide what we want it to mean. If you're watching this, you're part of that decision. Your comments don't just feed an algorithm, they steer which angles this conversation takes next. If you want accountability, say it, but also say what accountability should look like. If you want safer play, tell me whether that means harsher penalties or better coaching or both. If you want the W to keep rising, subscribe and stay in the conversation, because the worst thing that can happen after a week like this is silence. Silence pretends it was all normal. Nothing about that night was normal. Here's where I land. Sophie didn't choose the collision, but she chose the response. Pride in her team, belief in their fight, and clarity about what needs to improve. Hartley didn't choose the narrative, but she can choose the next chapter. Own the impact. Play cleaner, let the film be her argument. The league didn't choose the outrage, but it can choose the standard. Simple, fast, published. And we, as the crowd that claims to love this game, can choose to push for better, without confusing fury for purpose. If you're still with me, you're exactly the kind of fan this league needs. Eyes open, heart engaged, standards high. Tap like if you agree. Players deserve protection without killing the edge that makes this game great. Hit subscribe if you want coverage that respects your attention and treats these moments like more than clickbait. Drop your take below on automatic reviews, on how apologies should be handled, on what reckless ought to mean in the rulebook, and to the Fever fans who lived that comeback. Remember the feeling, not the fear. Nights like that are why we care in the first place.